Beep, 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 beep. Hello, peeps. Got something going back a couple of weeks that I was sent by a viewer. Thank you. You know who you are. I appreciate it when you come up with something interesting like this. So I thought it was worth us taking a look at it. Buy me a coffee. Join the Warrior Teacher Program. Subscribe to my Substack. Subscribe to this and share it. That's the most helpful thing at the moment. Subscribe and share it. This is from Attitude magazine, which I never read because it's just nonsense from the LGBTQ plus hands, knees, blue-haired nutters. But this one's worth reading because I think it's massively troubling. And I'll be interested to see what you have to say about whether you think it's massively troubling in the comments section below. Links, as ever, good people, in the dubris, right? Okay, so let's begin. The troublemaking gay on a mission to make healthcare more inclusive. The LGBTQ plus healthcare activist has been honoured at the 2023 Pride's Awards in association with Magnum. The person that we're talking about is one called Dr. Joe Hartland, who is responsible for a disgusting piece of work that has gone around medical schools and which very stupid people have signed up for. Right? Very stupid people have signed up for. So Attitude have slapped Hartland on the back and said, well done. Well done for screwing with medicine. They really are happy clappy circle jerking now, aren't they? A healthcare colleague asked if I really wanted to be known as a troublemaking gay, smiles Dr. Joe Hartland, senior lecturer at Bristol University and LGBTQ plus healthcare activist, reflecting on their work in medicine. The irony is, I've made a career of being a troublemaking gay. Have you now? Joe, who spent 5 years working for the NHS, now works with the LGBTQ plus Inclusive Medical Education Alliance. For the love of God. Interesting. What do you make of this? You tell me. Joe, who spent 5 years working in the NHS, now works... Where's he gone? Why is he out of the NHS? He or she, who knows these days, right? Now works with the LGBTQ plus Inclusive Medical Education Alliance. This is the guy who dug nails into his own hand and filmed it because he was upset because he had to watch a PowerPoint that showed his nutter belief system for what it was. He was infuriated. He gets angry. He prods himself with his now self-harms. Weirdo. Right, okay, so... The network is committed to better teaching on LGBTQ plus health and developing curricula to help medical students examine any queer-phobic bias and privilege that they may bring to clinical practice and to ensure marginalised community voices are heard. It's such cobblers. Let's do it again. The Medical Education Alliance is committed to better teaching on LGBTQ plus health and developing curricula to help medical students examine any queer-phobic bias and privilege they may bring to clinical practice and to ensure marginalised community voices are heard. The inclusion of trans and genderqueer people is my passion, says Joe. Right? Okay, Joe's a critical social justice nut job, right? So if there's ever been an example that you want to say to people, look, don't be this. This is it, right? So Joe is a critical social justice nut job, right across the board. So he's inventing his own words, queerphobia. What does it even mean to be queer? It's not, well, we know what it means. It's very worrying, queer theory. We should all be worried about that. And this is the person that's trying to get it into all the medical schools. So, right? What not to be? It's like the archetypal crackers, critical social justice madman, because in that statement there about the Medical Alliance education cobblers, it's got it all: race, bias, queerphobic, LGBTQ plus. It's the whole kit and caboodle, and therefore the inclusion of trans and genderqueer people is my passion. Well, Joe, if your inclusion of trans and genderqueer people is your passion, if you're a gay man, that means you're a self-loathing homophobe, right? And if you're a woman and not a man, then it means that you're a self-loathing straight woman. So which is it, dear? Because the world must know if you're going to start making statements and interfering in medical schools like you're doing. Look on Twitter, you'll find more about what this clown's been up to. There's something called the charter that medical schools sign up to, and we need to get them to unsign it. We need them to say we're not doing it, because we've got to get people like this out of the medical field because they are ruining the NHS with their interference. No affinity groups, no LGBT, blah, blah, blah. We get them out. Right, as a genderqueer person, it remains a very difficult thing to tackle. The medical community is relatively conservative in its approach to these issues. Utter nonsense of the first order. right? Just because the medical community is radically conservative, because people actually believe in reality, doesn't mean you get to throw your wibble jizz all over their faces, all right? Joe came out twice, firstly as gay at 19 and more recently as genderqueer after lockdown prompted reflection. He had too much what? Too much Anne Shandian, was it? You know, a bit too much porn, was it? Hey? What do you reckon, Joe? No? Right. Come out as gay at 19 and more recently as genderqueer. You don't come out as genderqueer. Twit. It's like saying I come out as Labour. I come out as Conservative. You're just an ideological extremist who's interfering in the medical establishment. I realised my gender identity wasn't sitting comfortably with the hyper-masculine end of the spectrum. Right, so you're a bit of a fairy. Right, is that what you're saying? Well, join the club. Right, join the club. I can mince around with the best of them. Right, I've flounced my way through various things in my life. Ooh, get the madam. You know, you're a bit of a fairy. So what? You sit there ruminating and looking up your own bum, deciding about your fictitious gender identity. I realised my gender identity wasn't sitting comfortably with the hyper-masculine end of the spectrum. Do you think he's misspelt speculum? Oh, the hyper-masculine end of the speculum. Bet you've had a few of them, haven't you, Joe? Right, okay. I began to explore. I began to explore. It's important to me, having the freedom to change the way I present, to use they, them pronouns, to be a role model for queer students. Right, so you change your clothes and you think you're doing something Martin Luther King-like. You are an idiot. Right? You're not the new Gandhi, you're a twat. Sorry, love, you're probably a nice guy, you know? Right, I imagine. Just a bit overhyped, you know, emotional. Spent too much time looking up his own bum during lockdown. When I ask about their vision for the future of LGBTQ plus healthcare, he said there, right? Because he's meant to be a non-binary thing. Joe cites joy as being queer. Joy, trans joy, queer joy. Queer people are consistently framed as traumatized. Well, they're obviously not very well if they believe in that belief system, are they? Right? There's something wrong with them. If they believe they've got a gendered soul, there's something wrong with them. Otherwise, what is it? Very few examples within health education focus on the joy, success and love we see in our community. Well, according to stats, that's mostly paid for, isn't it? When we are present, we are a burden or a disease. It's because you're mentally unwell. People are mentally unwell. That's why they're getting the help they need, hopefully, and not bloody surgery. And the queer thing's just nonsense. I mean, they're just ideological nut jobs. So you're either mentally unwell or a loon, sociopath, psychopath. Which is it? Do you think he's digging his fingers in now? Right. The statistics speak for themselves. According to the UK's Mental Health Foundation, 1 in 8 LGBTQs have experienced unequal treatment from healthcare staff. Just because people don't believe in your bonkers belief system or lie to your face doesn't mean that you're being treated unequally. You're being treated like everybody else. Reality is the basis of that. 1 in 7 has avoided treatment for fear of discrimination. Well, that's your issue. It's nobody else's issue. Joe highlights that queer identities are seen as negative. You bet. Queer theory wants to unpick the world, and it wants to break down the barriers between adult and child. And you think people are seeing that negatively? You bet, Joe. We're seeing it negatively, right? What wants to call mothers fathers and fathers mothers, wants people to be able to LARP and feed babies when they're men on drugs. You are insane if you think this is going to be accepted. We need to get this stuff out of medical schools and we need to do it now. Where the hell is the government on this? The reality is far from the truth. They misspelled it. LGBTO plus. That's so ironic. Because if you're a bloke my age and fat, because it should be LGBTQ, and it's got LGBTO, right? So if you're a bloke my age, fat as I am, you look like the capital letter Q when you're naked, right? Okay. What they've done is they put an O in here, which is obviously it's a trans Q. Glorious. LGBTQ people are not inherently less mentally well. Yes, they are. TQ people are mentally unwell. When are you going to get this? You're supposed to be a doctor. Of course, you're not a doctor anymore. You're not a doctor. You're an indoctrinationer. Is that right? You don't doctor anymore. You indoctrinate. Is that what it is? Have I got this right? Because if I haven't got it right, you can easily put the record straight, couldn't you? Drop me a line. You know, do a video. A prime example was poor government handling of monkeypox. Monkeypox was about gay men. where public messaging was lacking. Once again, gay men were labelled as spreaders of a new pandemic. Nothing to do with TQ. Fuck is up with you, right? What was impressive was the queer community came together to take up the slack. No, they didn't. The gay community did. You ridiculous numpty. The phrasing as a gay man's disease is typical of the queer phobia. Well, we have sex more often. So if something's going to come up that's going to be passed by, doing the old beast with two backs, it's likely that gay men are going to see it first. You know why? Because gay men have sex a lot. Not all of us. I don't have sex at all. But, lots of gay men want to have sex. Why not? We're men. It's what gay men like sex, right? Okay? So stop pretending you know anything about this when you don't, right? The phrasing as a gay man's disease is typical of the queer phobia. No, it's got nothing to do with queer phobia, right? When AIDS was around and gay men were treated badly because of it, that was homophobia. Nothing to do with queer phobia. What the hell are you talking about, you wibbling nonsense merchant? It's typical of the queer phobia we see within health generally. There's no queer phobia in health. This is a deranged individual who's, for some reason, no longer in the NHS. I'm thinking something went wrong. I don't know. I'd like to know, though. I don't know, but I'd like to know, right? It says it's often rooted in quite a moralist approach to health. It's got nothing to do with being moral. It's reality. Ugh. That's something we need to unpick. No, I think you need to unpick your head, you nuts. Joe has themselves had bad experience as a haematology patient. The doctors insisted that Joe's blood sample be tested for HIV became fraud. There was a lack of belief of the fact my relationship was monogamous. I still needed to be tested. You're a gay man. You should be tested regularly. Right? Are you mad? Your relationship might be monogamous. What about your partner? You absolutely insane twit. God, bloody gay men lie about this stuff all the time. Not that they lie about who they're porking or fiddling with or, having their tonsils prodded by. Gay men do it all the time. A certain sector, not all, a certain sector. Heterosexual people lie about it all the time. For God's sake. The word gay was put on my blood form as the reason I needed a test instead of symptoms for which I was being tested. It made me think carefully about how open I was with healthcare professionals in the future. So you want to be proud and loud, but you don't want people to know that I don't understand you, Joe. I think you're a confused person. Medical professionals must educate themselves on issues of HIV healthcare. That's about gay men, and stop relying on LGBTQ plus patients to educate. Nothing to do. This is an entire article all about forced teaming. The biggest issue the medical community currently faces, the nation is gripped by moral panic, is transphobia. When we talk trans-inclusive healthcare, it's immediately politicised, says Joe. There is no community. It's just LARPing children who are unwell or fetishists. Make up your mind. So much so, even trying to create a positive change becomes a risk or negative for NHS trust. Go and have a look for yourself, because he goes on and on. It's just absolute ruddy nonsense. Blah, blah, blah. Joe, this should be noted because of the insanity from the Terence Higgins Trust at Pride the other day. If you haven't seen it, go and have a look. Joe is working with the Terence Higgins Trust. They're activists, so they need to be shut down. End of story, right? And they've given the Wibbling Twit an award. We really need to get our head around what this is about, We really need to get our head around what, and they need to be realistic. It's all about force teaming us together. Gay men are promiscuous, therefore they get checked often. Yeah, if you've been promiscuous, get checked. Doesn't matter if you're gay or straight, right? But the facts are, gay men like to have sex, and they like to have sex often, and they do it in all sorts of ways because why wouldn't we? You can't get pregnant. Or though, if you look at Joseph, you think you could because he's a bit of a fart with a bonnet on it, isn't he? Go and have a look at the article, see what you think. I think we need to talk to the medical schools and get this idiot gone. There's something seriously wrong with medical schools that are signing up to the kind of nonsense that he writes. I'll see you later. Ta-ra, folks.